My name's Steve Pitman. I'm the president of the board of NAMI Orange County. NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I became involved with NAMI about 7 years ago as a result of trying to find help for my brother. And gradually my participation has grown. I first started by attending classes, then I took the training to teach the classes. I've been teaching the classes ever since and continue to teach them. And I came onto the board about 3 years ago because I think the work that we do for families and consumers is important, probably one of the most important things that I do. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. And now I'd like to introduce Myrlene Chapman, who has been heavily involved with NAMI for some time, and if I have anything to do and say about it, will become more and more involved.
Thank you, Steve. My name is, as Steve said, Myrlene Chapman. I've been involved with NAMI since 2008, and so really I've got the training to become a family-to-family teacher, so I'm a family member, and because of my loved one who suffered with mental illness. And also I became now I'm learning and I've been trained for provider education classes, so to be teaching to the professionals, and as well as facilitating support groups for the family members as well as for a spousal support group. Thank you very much.
We're here to talk to you today about a nonprofit that Myrlene and I are both involved in called NAMI Orange County. NAMI, N-A-M-I, stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Mental illness is something that's often not discussed, but it's something that affects 25% of the people in the United States or in any other country for that matter. 5% of the people in the population have what we call serious mental illnesses. NAMI is an organization that provides education, emotional support, and advocacy to people who are mentally ill, who we refer to as consumers, and also to their families. Fundamentally, NAMI believes that when families are involved in treatment and support, consumers, those with mental illness, do better. And historically, the system has excluded family members from the treatment process. We believe that they have to be included. The reason that I'm involved in NAMI personally is that I have a brother that was diagnosed nearly 50 years ago. And the therapist very quickly decided that the reason for my brother's problems was my mother and father, who I might add were both ministers. They took that all very seriously. The psychiatrist they were seeing told my parents that they should get out of his life, that he should not be in their home, they should not be in his home. They should only meet on neutral territory. The psychiatrist went on to say that any problems that weren't attributable directly to my parents were the fault of a dysfunctional family. Of course, that's all nonsense, but there was a time when that was basically the way that the therapeutic community responded to families and those with mental illness. What NAMI wants to do is take a huge step back in the other direction of saying that therapists are going to be much more effective if they can embrace and involve the family in the treatment process rather than exclude them. Marlene, would you like to?
Yes, I would like to emphasize in sharing the information of NAMI, how we reach out to the family members and as well as to the consumers, the patients, because of some of our signature programs that we have to offer, such as we have family-to-family classes, which is a 12-week course that's to the family members, and then we have peer-to-peer, which is a 10-week course once a week, and that's for the patients for themselves, and that's also being taught by family members, and the consumer classes are taught by a consumer with the illness that are stable. And then we have provider education classes, and those classes teach professionals, and that's for a 5 days training, and so that's usually is spread out of various of different education. We have in our own voice presentations. So NAMI Orange County and all NAMI nationals and everything offers all these different programs to the family members at no charge to the families and to the consumers. And
These programs are starting all the time. They're starting all over the county. And so it's very easy for a family that wants to get involved or a consumer that wants to get involved to become involved. One of the reasons that mental health issues in general are not discussed is because of the stigma associated with mental illness. When people think of mental illness, they think of Sandy Hook and they think of Aurora and they think of Seal Beach. No one would want that for themselves. No one would want that for a family member. So rather than dealing with the mental illness, we don't talk about it. And by not talking about it, we make the problem worse. So NAMI believes, obviously, that we should talk about it, and we think that it's freeing to talk about it. And clearly, most people with mental illness, we couldn't characterize in those terms. Most people with mental illness have spouses, they have partners, they have jobs, they're functioning very normally in the society, but they don't talk about it, so no one knows. Oftentimes, when I'm doing presentations, I will say to the group that I'm talking to, 25% of the people in the United States or any other country will have a diagnosable mental illness in their lifetime. And of course, they're all the audience is all looking to one another to see if that could possibly be true. And then I go on to say, now, of course, that doesn't apply to the people in this group, but if we were to leave this room, that's true. And then, of course, everybody laughs because mental illness is just something from which we cannot escape. But if we deal with it on an educational basis, and if we provide the emotional support, and if we provide the advocacy, a person with mental illness can live a very happy, productive life. They just have to learn how to manage their mental health, and their family has to learn how to support them in doing that.
right, and then also looking at all the classes and everything that we provide and looking at NAMI Orange County and any other affiliated office with NAMI, and the people mean something to us because the stigma, everybody look, it's mental illness, they run the other way because of the stigma, the word mental illness. However, you have to look at it, it's a brain disorder. Like anybody is ill with having cancer or diabetes or any other illness, this just happened to affect their brain, so it would affect their behavior. So that's the core part that we need to look at. Somebody with cancer could be having an emotional problem, be depressed. So that's depression is a mental illness. But however, the word mental illness, we don't like to, a lot of people, the stigma, they don't want to hear that. So therefore, they'll look at more something like saying it's a brain disorder, it's a behavior disorder, and that is more pleasant and to some than others. And I know it's hidden. The word mental illness is completely hidden in the family. And just like how I got involved with NAMI was because of my husband who has brain disorder, which is a mental illness, a bipolar, borderline personality. And looking at that, for the past 5 years, I've been really passionate and involved with NAMI, is to help educating the families, the loved ones, and also all the community, and getting together more involved with NAMI, because the service is there to educate all the family members.
And to provide that emotional support and to provide advocacy, because there are answers. But again, typically what happens when somebody has their first episode, if you will, with mental illness is the system starts to separate the family from the consumer. The family is not a part of the treatment process. The family typically doesn't know what's going on in the treatment process. They certainly don't know what they can do to support their ill family member. And so you start to create this sense of isolation. And because of our general societal fear in mental illness, a couple of things happen. The consumer starts to isolate. He doesn't want or she doesn't want to be around her friends because they will say, so how's it going with college or with your job or with something like that? And typically what happens is the consumer has to say, well, I'm not in college, I had to drop out, or I'm not working anymore because I'm having this problem. They don't want to go into the details again because of stigma. So instead they isolate. Families do the same thing. If you go to a soccer game where your kids have played for years and years and years and you see old friends, they're going to ask you how your family member is doing. you don't want to have to say, well, they're suffering from bipolar disorder, so there's a tendency for families to isolate. When we teach these classes, and again, as Myrlene has said, they are all free, we find that in this room of people, no one has talked to anyone about the mental health problems they're being challenged with because of stigma. So one of the things that we're able to do in our classes is we provide a supportive group, a non-judgmental group for family members and consumers to be involved, where no one is saying this problem with mental illness is a character defect you have, which is often suggested and totally untrue. It's instead, as Myrlene has said, a medical condition just like diabetes or just like a heart condition or just like cancer. It can be dealt with. But it's absolutely imperative that it's dealt with as early as possible because mental illness is a progressive disease. The longer it goes untreated, the worse it will become. So the earlier, the younger, if you will, that we can get treatment for folks and support for families, the better the outcome will be.
And so we're looking at reaching out to the community to provide them the resources that they need, the advocacy that they need, so they could feel that they have somewhere to go for help, for understanding, for compassionate, for care. Because NAMI, some people would ask me, where do you go to for help and to communicate with somebody about your situation at home? I said, I could talk to a NAMI family member. They became my family because they are my family, because they understand the situation. They have a supporting ears and a care and embrace. So therefore, we built in our community to spread it out in every county and the cities that we can be. Because like this, the family does not feel alone. Their loved one doesn't feel alone. They could have somebody to communicate, to understand what they're dealing with that, at that time. And we ought also to help educating the police force to help them to understand what is the mental illness and what's happening to the family, and what's happening to the patient, which we call consumers. So therefore, we are here for you and to care and to provide you the support that you need.
One of the things that we try to do as NAMI is we try to measure how many people we're able to reach out and touch. And last fiscal year, which ended in 2012, June 30th to be exact, we were able to touch a little over 20,000 people here in Orange County with our classes, with our presentations, with outreach activities that we did. This year, the number will be over 30,000. Last year, we taught about 20 classes at family to family, and about 30% of those classes were in languages other than English. We teach the classes in Spanish, we teach in Korean, Farsi, Arabic, and Vietnamese. This year, we'll have taught about 25% more classes to the non-English speaking community. So your language shouldn't create a barrier for you to attend these classes. We have people who are prepared to teach the class in all 5 or 6 of those languages. But this year, we expect to reach over 30,000 people. That is in the year just passed. So I'm adding the numbers up here. And we project for this coming fiscal year that we'll reach almost 50,000 people, again, between classes and presentations and outreach events. So hopefully, as time passes, the name NAMI will become more and more familiar to you. Most people, the first time they hear the name, say, "What's a NAMI?" Well, NAMI is, again, National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we would like it to become such a familiar term that we can talk to anyone, anywhere about it, and they all know, oh, NAMI does good work. They provide free services for families and consumers. The other really powerful thing that we just kind of hinted at is many times the reason consumers avoid a diagnosis is because of the stigma that's involved. And when they walk into a peer-to-peer class and see other people who have a mental illness as well, and see again that they all have partners, they have jobs, they're working, they're being productive with their lives, many of them conclude, Well, this doesn't look nearly as bad as I thought it would. These people all look pretty normal, which is the way most mentally ill people look, pretty normal. They just need help managing their mental illness. The other thing that we haven't mentioned is NAMI also runs a warm line, which is open about 18 hours a day. People who call the warm line call because they're looking for resources. In other words, my son just got out of jail. He was jailed in part because of his mental illness, and he doesn't have a place to live, and he's got a felony on his record. Where can he go to get housing? Or where can he or she go to get a job? Or what kind of resources are available to help them? The Warm Line has those resources at hand, and this information is all available on our website. The other thing that happens at the Warm Line is people call in who are feeling very manic or very depressed, and they just need someone to talk to. And the people at the Warm Line are trained to talk with consumers and help them work through those difficult times so that they don't feel nearly as isolated. Would you like to talk about the walk for a minute?
Yes, the walk is coming on September 28th, Saturday, September 28th, and our walk is everybody could participate, and it's our fundraiser that we do every year. We are coming up this September will be our 9th annual walk, and it's at the Huntington Beach Pier, and signing in registration starts at 9 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, excuse me, at 8 o'clock. And so everybody's welcome to come and walk. And it's a 5K walk. Very simple, relax, right there by the beach. Feel free to bring your animals, your pets. Of course, maintain them and bring their little doggy bag for any accidents. But we all, bring your kids in the stroller, so it's just a fun day, music and a good time that everybody will enjoy. And if you want to start a team yourself, feel free to go into our website, www.namioc.org, and that will go to the NAMI Walk website, and that will click you on how to proceed on being a captain or leading the group, the same thing, a team. So we're looking forward to seeing you at the beach on Saturday, September 28th.
And if you get frustrated with the website, you can always call our office, which is in Santa Ana. The phone number there is 714-544-8488. And they would be happy to guide you through the process of going on to register or giving you information about NAMI or any of the other programs as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention about the walk is that since all of our programs are free, we are kind of always on a fundraising mode, and the walk generates about a third of our income. Last year it generated $145,000. But through other fundraising activities, we generate about another $350,000 because free programs are not inexpensive. We are always, as I've said, in a fundraising mode. But because of our success in that fundraising mode, we're able to continue to offer all of these programs at no charge. Last year, the family-to-family class, which we've referred to several times, we taught 27 times. This year, it's going to be closer to 40 times. The peer-to-peer class, which we've also referenced, last year we taught 13 times. This next year, it's going to be closer to 20 times. But these are classes, again, going on everywhere all the time. We made a decision some time ago that we were only going to teach classes when people are affected by mental illness. And of course, the answer to that is all the time. And we were only going to go into communities and places where people were affected, and of course that's everywhere. So our commitment here in Orange County is to teach classes all the time and everywhere. We want to provide service in this area. We've been providing service. We want to grow that service, and one of the reasons we're here today is we hope to reach a much larger audience with those services that are available.
So we're here for the community, to care for your loved ones and to care for you as family members and to provide you with the support and the advocacy and information that you need. And do not hesitate to call us or check on our website. Again, like Steve mentioned earlier, phone number 714-544-8488. And again, our website is www.namioc.org. And we always open arm to whoever would love to volunteer. We have volunteer, that's how we maintain all of our services, is through the volunteer. If you want to get trained to teach a class or to take a class first, you must take a class before you could to be trained to take a class, to teach a class. And as well as that we are here for you and always, and this is best.
The other thing that we haven't mentioned is we have support groups that take place throughout the county. The support groups are either directed at the families or they're directed at the consumers. The family classes are all over the county. They meet once a week. Some of them meet every 2 weeks. Some of them meet once a month. Each support group is a little different. But all the information on our support groups is available through the county, through the NAMI office in Santa Ana. And you can go attend a support group for a session or two and get your problems addressed and not return. Or some people attend support groups for extended periods of time because they find that it's helpful. The support group for consumers is called Connection. And again, that's a support group for consumers, led by consumers. And those classes go on and on and on forever. And just as with the family groups, some people go on a regular basis and some people go to get problems addressed and then they discontinue. It's totally up to the participants involved.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the provider education class, which provides 2 professionals, continuing education units for 15 CEUs. And those classes, 5-week courses for free, only for 3 hours. And we always have them in different locations. So that's including for all of our classes. If anybody, any family, loved ones that you have or yourself with a business and you have conference room that you would like us to come in to conduct classes or a presentation there, we are more than happy to do that. So do not hesitate to call us.
Again, the provider class is directed at the provider community. So anyone who's providing services for folks that are mentally ill, have a mental illness, we'll reach out, whether the person is a receptionist or a marriage and family counselor. Those people are all welcome within the provider network. And one of the things that we find is that providers typically are much better trained to understand how mental illness affects a consumer and not nearly as informed as to how it affects the family. And one of the things that we have found is that even if a family is lucky enough to find the very best therapist in the world, or more specifically in Orange County, that therapist only has an hour or maybe 2 hours a week to work with the consumer. The other 167 or other 166 hours, they're not there. So who is in a better position to support that consumer absent the trained therapist? And of course, we believe it's the family. And to the extent the family is involved in the therapy process and a part of the treatment team, they're in a much better position to provide that support. When they're excluded, they don't know what to do. I think I referred earlier to my brother who was diagnosed 50 years ago. He died in January. And one of the conclusions that I reached, because he had no medical conditions, he certainly didn't have cancer and he didn't have heart failure, he didn't have any of those things that we normally associate with the death of a younger person. He was at the time 67. He had just simply become disconnected. Every time he went into a manic episode, he offended people, he lost friends, his circle of acquaintances grew smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point that at his death, there weren't a whole lot of people calling to see how he was doing. He basically lived in a small room with another mentally ill man. They shared toilet facilities with 2 other mentally ill people because, as I've said earlier, mental illness has a tendency to isolate you from the larger world. And if most people at 67 got seriously ill, they would be fighting to get out of the hospital, fighting to return to their work or to their family or to whoever they were connected with. But many times the mentally ill become disconnected And so there's not, at a certain point, there's not a whole lot to fight for in terms of getting out of the hospital. So sadly, he passed largely alone. His family came to see him and certainly mourned his loss. But there weren't a huge circle of friends that he had. And all too often, that's kind of the course that mental illness takes. And we want to change that. We want people to live happy, normal, hopeful, and productive lives. And we know that they can do it, but they need support. The question is, where do they best get that support? And we believe that it's by staying involved and engaged with their families. And the only way that will happen is to embrace the families as a part of the process.
And then with our programs, we provide resources. We're not psychiatrists or psychologists. And even though we have professionals of psychiatrists, psychologists, marriage family therapists who've taken our provider education classes to bring it to their community of their practice for their clients and their patients. So therefore, we're here to help providing additional information to everyone, and not just the families and the consumers, but also the hospitals, the professionals, and to give them additional information that to be able to help their clients even furthermore.
One of the interesting things that happens in the family-to-family class is that in about the third week of the class, people talk about their own family member and the impact that mental illness has had not only on their family member, but also the family as well. And every single time that I teach the class, people just weep. And the reason they weep, obviously part of the reason is the loss of the dreams that they once had for their family member. But the other reason they weep is that they've never before been in a group where they could talk about it. And it doesn't matter. They don't talk about it in their churches. They don't talk about it in any of their faith-based community. They just don't talk about it because of the stigma that's involved. We talk about the fact that if somebody's stricken with cancer, people are bringing food to their door. If somebody's stricken with heart problems, people are bringing food to their door. Prayers are being sent. When you find out you have a family member with mental illness, largely the phone stops ringing because people don't know what to say, and they certainly don't know what to do. And again, NAMI advocates that we should treat these illnesses like any other and provide support for the family just as we would do with any other medical condition. So that not only does the consumer do better, but the family does better.
Yes. And so therefore, we are here as NAMI OC is to showing the care and the support that we could provide out to the community, and the love that you're not alone. And we understand, we respect your privacy and all the classes that we conduct throughout the Orange County. Everything that's within the class are confidential, but because we are here to help you and to be a support group for you, provide you the resources that you need, and to show our care.
So make our phone ring. Call 714-544-8488. We can give you a list of free resources that are available to you. As people join, they get the resource guide mailed to them, which at this point has about 850 resources to date. We know there are more resources available, and we are working on a daily basis to make sure that the resource list that we have is comprehensive and current. But it's growing on a daily basis, and we want to make that information available to you. But the only way that we can do that is for you to call us and become members. Membership starts for as little as $3, so there shouldn't be any reason why anyone can't afford to become a member of NAMI OC. But more importantly, we want to deliver those services to you. We want to make the educational support available, the emotional support, the advocacy that we do. And the only way that we can do that is for you to respond to this kind of outreach effort by calling us and letting us know how we can help you solve your particular dilemmas.
Thank you for listening to us, and we hope we made a difference in your lives and your loved ones' lives. And we hope to see you at the beach on Saturday, September 28th. Be there. We'll look for myself and look for Steve. We'll be happy to embrace you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.